coming to you once again from my basement out in North Liberty, where I've been spending a lot of time lately. Very excited to have Lisa Dondlinger on the program today. Lisa is a Grammy-nominated violinist and University of Iowa School of Music graduate, and she's going to be doing a number of performances today. I got to tell you, this is our 4th episode. That's probably the greatest entrance we've had to the start of our episode. It gave me goosebumps, so thank you. Lisa is a collaborator and with numerous top artists ranging from Lady Gaga, John Legend, Stevie Wonder, Céline, Dion. She's contributed on the soundtracks of many major motion pictures, including Finding Dory, The Jungle Book, The Greatest Showman. She is a former Miss Iowa and has performed as a soloist and concertmaster on various TV shows, including American Idol, The Voice, and The Ellen Show, that's just amazing. She fused classical and film score melodies on her 2017 solo debut album, Movies and the Masters, and shares her Hawkeye fandom on social media, performing Fight for Iowa, AC/DC's Back in Black, and other black and gold favorites. Very excited to have all of you join us for our chat from the old cap. If this is your first one, let you know that it's a series of virtual engagement sessions featuring Iowa alumni and friends sharing stories about their careers and, of course, connecting us to the university that we love. Lisa, it is an absolute honor to have you on the program today. Welcome.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody out there. I hope everyone's staying safe and is healthy and staying sane in all this crazy time. I watched Chuck Long's talk last week, and I wanted to point out he's not the only one with a signed Hawkeye football. I have one too from Kirk Barron's, and actually it's a cool story because the Los Angeles Iowa Club is very active out here in LA, and we had a big watch party for the Outback Bowl at the beginning of 2019, and one of the raffle items was the football, although I didn't win it. But I did, every time the Hawkeyes did something great, I ran around the entire bar, which is a few different levels, and high-fived everybody for every good play the Hawks did. And so the guy who actually won the ball gave me the ball, thinking that I had the best Hawkeye spirit. So very proud.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. And you must have been busy because that was quite the game.
It was a really fun game. So you had a good time. So I thought
like I said,
you guys through my story a little bit of, how I got started with music and why I'm here today and what I do. And I'm originally from Des Moines, Iowa. And my musical gifts kind of presented themselves pretty early. I started as a singer really, really young. So my first performance was in preschool when I was 4. And I surprised my mom with the song, You Light Up My Life, this old song. I learned it on my own. I didn't tell her or anybody I was going to do it, just my teacher. And so that's kind of how my first performance went. Everyone was really happy and surprised. I later met Debbie Boone, who sings that song. And I told her the story, which I thought she'd be excited about. But unfortunately, the fact that I was in preschool when she was singing the song didn't make her super happy. But, that's how it goes. So that was my first performance. I kept in school through music programs through my school and at church. I had a really amazing music program there. And I was really fortunate. I had some great teachers. My parents are not musicians at all, so they didn't really know what to do to foster my talents. So luckily, the school teacher told them, she's kind of learning faster than everyone else. She'd get into private lessons, and they listened. So I started taking private lessons in violin in the 4th grade, and just continued with orchestras, continued with choirs, show choirs, all that kind of stuff through high school. I went to Allstate a few times, and my senior year of high school, I started studying with the violin teacher at the University of Iowa. At the time, it was Alan Ohms. He was a super well-known teacher throughout the Midwest, very highly respected. So I started studying with him then, and during my senior year, another girl from Des Moines and I would travel back and forth to Iowa City on the weekends, and we would take 1.5 hour lessons. We'd do homework while the other one was studying, and we'd go back home. So I knew that I was going to go to Iowa because they offered me a full scholarship at that time to continue studying with the teacher. And I didn't really audition for other schools because I thought, well, this is great. I get to have my undergraduate education paid for. I really love the campus. And so I decided to go to Iowa. During my time at Iowa, I was active in a group called Old Gold Singers, which I'm not sure if it still is there. It was a singing and dancing group. And I was active in a sorority and, of course, all of the orchestra programs. And kind of an interesting story from my freshman year. The conductor at the time's name was Charles Dixon. And so I'm coming in as a freshman, but there's master's students, there's doctoral students, much more experienced than me. And there was a full symphony orchestra, and then they had chamber orchestras, smaller groups, to help with the conducting students. And so my very first chamber orchestra as a freshman, he told me, you have to sit concertmaster. And of course, I didn't want to. I was really nervous and scared. I didn't want to step on these older kids' toes. But he said, nope, you there. And you did not say no to him. So I sat there. And throughout the years, every single time there was ever a solo, we had to sight read music every day. So they'd put the music in front of us, had to sight read. And whenever there was a solo, he would make the entire orchestra stop and just listen to me play to make me super nervous and kind of ready for anything that came my way. So at the time, I wasn't super happy that he would do that. But in my job today, that's all I do, basically, is sight reading. They put music in front of you as a studio musician, and you are expected to read that, I mean, as pretty near perfect as you can, because you don't want to be someone who made a mistake, cost the studio money because they had to stop. So I'm really, really fortunate that I had that experience at Iowa. Really, really got me ready for the career that I have now, although I had no idea at the time. I just felt like a scared freshman. So I continued my time at Iowa. Again, I was active in so many different activities. And then I got to my senior year. Each year I was getting more and more focused on the violin. And as many of you know, the Bill Riley State Fair Talent Show is a big deal at the Iowa State Fair. But I had never seen a violinist perform and win it. So I didn't really think of myself as doing that. But my junior year, a friend of mine who plays the flute happened to win. And so I thought, well, if a flute player can win, I mean, of course a violinist could win, right? So you have to win a local state fair first. And so there was one local state fair, the entire, I think it was like, you have to do it sometime in the spring, that I was able to do. I went to that. I played a really complicated classical piece. There was over 100 people there, dancers, singers. I didn't think they would be interested in what I had, but they did choose me as a winner. So I went to the Bill Riley State Fair Talent Show that summer, kept going through the competition, and was able to win. And so that was really, really exciting. After watching it all growing up, and then actually, as far as I know, I think I'm the only violinist who's ever won the talent show. So that's kind of a cool thing. Now the talent show became important in my life because people saw me on TV. They would televise it on public broadcasting station. And somebody contacted the Miss Iowa Board of Directors. So they contacted me to find out if I would be interested in being involved in the Miss Iowa, Miss America pageant. And all growing up, I was very serious academic person, serious violinist, did not think the pageant jived with that at all. So at first I just said, no, not really interested. And then they said, well, but do you know it's the largest scholarship organization in the world for women, which I did not know. So after Iowa, I ended up going to Indiana University for my master's degree. It's one of the top music schools in the world. And the first year there, I didn't have scholarships. So I did need some money to keep going to school. So lo and behold, I decided to get involved. And it was much more involved than I ever could have imagined. The talent obviously is a big portion. At the time, there was a swimsuit competition. So you had to be in really good health and working out all the time. You had to have a social issue platform that meant a lot to you. So I worked with America's Promise with Colin Powell and the Living Presidents at the time. And we were trying to find activities, including music and sports, for kids who are maybe high risk to get involved in drugs and gangs, get them involved in this instead. So that was, my experience. And then I ended up winning Miss Iowa. And all up until that time, I thought, well, I'm going to be in a professional orchestra full time. And I'm going to teach at the college level. I even said that on the Miss America broadcast. That was my exact quote. But during my years, Miss Iowa, I started reconnecting with the side of me that loves to sing. I did a ton of public speaking. I worked with kids. And I realized that while I do love playing an orchestra, and I still do that a little bit today, really I loved connecting with people and trying to find more of my own voice. So that year of Iowa, as Miss Iowa, really changed my career trajectory. I started looking into more classical crossover pieces, and my piece when I gave up the crown was actually Vivaldi's Storm, but set to kind of a techno beat, and I had dancers, and that kind of set me off into the path where I am today. I ended up moving to Los Angeles after that, not knowing anybody, which it's really, really crazy looking back, but when you're in your early 20s, you can sort of do that. So I moved to LA, and there's no real way to break into the studio world. That's the hard part about it. There isn't an audition that you can take and win and start working. You have to have people know about you, know about your playing, know about you as a person, if you're on time, if you do a good job. So I started by taking other kinds of auditions, and word of mouth started to spread that, you know, this new girl had moved to town. She was highly skilled and was on time, and hopefully they thought I was a good person. And then I started to work little by little, just, you know, little bits at a time. 2007 was probably a big change in my career because I started working more in television. So that was my first year working on the show American Idol. I started working on Dancing with the Stars. There was a show called Grease, which I think was only 1 year, which was another competition show. And then starting to work on more movies. I think the very first movie I did was called Monster-in-Law with Jennifer Lopez. So that was my very first movie. And just little by little, you start getting calls from other contractors, do a good job for them, and then hopefully you're hired again and again. It's not the easiest life because there's no job security. They could just decide one day, we're kind of done with her, let's hire somebody else. So you just have to keep making sure you're on time, doing a great job, doing everything that you can. So I started working on the Grammy Awards, working with different artists, live performances, their albums. And if anybody, you know, has questions later about like really specific people that they're interested in, I'm happy to talk about that. I eventually started working for Céline Dion, which was a huge influence for me. I played for her for 4 years and learned so much about stage presence and bringing your A game every night, because maybe somebody's going to hear you for the very first time in that performance. You want to make sure you're showing your very, very best. So being a backing artist for all of these people, Andrea Bocelli and Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire, you take little bits from each artist, the things that you saw that really worked for them. And I loved doing that. But then again, you know, you got to keep pushing yourself. So what am I going to do? What's my voice going to be in the music world? Which led me to create my album. It's called Movies and the Masters. And I have kind of a strange brain in that I hear melodies together at the same time that sound good together. So the very first piece on the album was Braveheart mixed with Jupiter from the Planets. And it's a mashup of pieces. And then the piece that I'll play for you now actually is a piece, it's called The Ninth Pirate, and it combines Pirates of the Caribbean theme with the scherzo from the Ninth Symphony. I worked with a few amazing arrangers on this album, and Chad Raymond was the one that I worked with on 2/3 of it. And when I brought him this idea at first, he said, well, everybody does pirates. I mean, if you look online, you're going to see so many videos. And I have my own YouTube channel at Lisa Dondlinger. You can check it out. We did a video for this one. So I said, yeah, but no one has combined it with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And of course, first he thought that was maybe a little sacrilegious, but I think we did a pretty good job combining it together. So let me play a little bit of that, The Ninth Pirate, for you now. And again, you can check out the video on YouTube.
That was fantastic.
I told Tony before this started, it's the weirdest thing in the world as a musician to do that, and then crickets.
I know, and we have everyone's microphones and videos turned off, but wow, that was really incredible. And just your whole story about, you know, being from Iowa and having this professor push you and how it's helped you now is really incredible. And what a great story. And like I said, that you are a virtuoso, and that is really cool to hear. So thank you for sharing with us.
Well,
do you have another piece from your album that you could do?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you.
This one, the cool thing too about this album is we decided to create an orchestral show with it as well, because it's always been my goal as a violinist to do things that maybe other violinists wouldn't think to do. I remember when I first put the Fight song online, someone made the comment, I didn't even know a violin could do that. Well, that's one of the best compliments you can give me, because I want to try to push the boundaries of what you think a violin can do. And so we created this orchestra show. And the next piece I'm going to play for you is called Mumbai Firebird. When you hear it with the full orchestration, it's a Bollywood feel. It has the Stravinsky's Firebird Suite mixed with Jai Ho from Slumdog Millionaire, which sounds like a very bizarre combination. But the cool thing is the very first performance we did of this was in May of 2018. And I wanted to have some pieces that the audience would literally be standing up in a symphony concert and dancing. And I didn't know how long that would take as far as performances, but the very first performance we ever did, the audience, and I have footage, stood up and was dancing. So it's a different kind of symphony concert than you've ever been to. And I think it should be fun. I mean, I want to kind of break down those barriers where a symphony audience doesn't feel afraid when they're going to clap. I want them to be involved and have a part to play in enjoying the music. So this is Mumbai Firebird. Hopefully you'll get a little bit of the Bollywood feel with just the violin part.
Excellent. Thank you. Another fantastic performance. And just so you know, Lisa, people are texting me and chatting and applauding. So you're getting lots of applause. So
Cool.
thank you.
You know, you can check out all that. I happen to have my album right here.
Oh,
At lisadondlinger.com. You can order my album. And you know, another cool thing goes along with this show is I do have a special needs son who's on the autism spectrum. And so with every regular concert that I do with orchestras, we have a component called a special T, or sorry, super T concert for Tristan, for any special needs families. And what we try to do is make it a little bit shorter and more sensory friendly. So if the kids have to make sounds or they need to move around, they can do whatever they want. I encourage them to dress up like superheroes. And I'm really fortunate that through all my experiences, especially during Miss Iowa, doing something different every day, basically a bomb could go off in the background and I'm not going to stop playing. There's no distraction that will bother me. So I feel like I'm a really good ambassador to make sure that all families have access to all of these concerts. And again, it's called Super T. I created a t-shirt with a superhero logo with a T in it. You can get on my website too. I just think it's really important to be really inclusive of all families and have them enjoy the music. So that's an important part of that too.
well, you can do everything. That's fantastic.
Well, it feels good, you know, to build these things throughout your life. I mean, you know, just one day at a time. And then when you get to the point where you've created something that maybe is going to last past you, that feels pretty good.
Oh, well, what an incredible story. I'm going to turn on the chat. So if anyone wants to send me a message, a question for Lisa, please do so now. And as we're kind of doing that, Lisa, maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you mentioned the Hawkeye violinist program. What have you got projects going on now?
Yeah, well, the Hawkeye violinist thing, it's kind of funny how that started. It actually started back in 2015 when obviously we had the unbeaten season. And I wanted to figure out something really special to do. It happened to coincide with the year that I started working on this album. So my very first video came out that year. And on Twitter, one of my followers said, well, if you're going to do that, why don't you also do like Back in Black for the Hawkeyes? And I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, that's like a really iconic, you know, rock music piece. I'm not sure that works on the violin, but I did. So that was my very first video. And then the next year I rewrote the 12 Days of Christmas using all Hawkeye lyrics and stats from that year. And then the next year I did the fight song. So it wasn't until this year that I realized, because it got, you know, a few thousand views here and there, but it wasn't like taking off. So I thought, well, what if I put the video just right on Twitter where people don't have to click to another site? And that's when it really took off. So I remember this year, I put the fight song out, and in 1 weekend it had like 35,000 views. It was really crazy. We were at a water park, and it was just like ding, 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 ding all weekend long. So then I realized that's really how to do it. So each week, I've missed maybe a couple weeks last year, but for the most part, I had a new video out every week. I did the fight song and Back in Black and On Iowa. I rewrote the lyrics to The Devil Went Down to Georgia when we played Michigan, and I put in like Jim Harbaugh's khaki pants and stuff like that. So yeah, I had something new most of the weeks this past year. So that's been really fun. And I want to thank all the Twitter followers that I have that have shared those and liked those and retweeted. And it was a really, really fun year. The only problem now is I don't know what's left to do this year. I got to figure out like what I'm going to do this fall, but I'm happy to hear suggestions for sure. If you guys have more tunes you want to hear.
Yeah, and we have a few questions that have come through. Can you hold up the album again? Some people wanted to write it down and take a closer look.
So it's Lisa Dondlinger, Movies and the Masters. And again, my website is just lisadondlinger.com.
Movies and the Masters. Very good. Your Twitter handle?
My name, Lisa Dondlinger. And the only thing that's different is my Instagram. I think there was a Lisa Dondlinger already taken. So you can still find it by putting my name, but you have to do, my name is Rock Goddess. That's the name of my production company. So it's ROQGODDESS.
How many hours a day do you practice?
Ooh, not enough anymore. Now it's more, I'm lucky if I can get in a good hour to an hour and a half. But when I was in school, that was a much different story. I started out practicing the beginning when I was at Iowa, probably like 2 hours, but that was not enough. I learned very quickly. I had another teacher, my violin teacher at Iowa, who really pushed me. I started going to music festivals around the world, and I went to camp with a violinist who's super famous now called Hilary Hahn. And she was a little younger than me, but way better. So I started practicing between 4 to 6 hours a day. But the thing that I say about that, like, especially if this question is coming from like a young musician, is don't just practice for the sake of hours. The important thing is to come up with a really good quality practice, come up with goals, and make sure that it's not just quantity. The quality of your practice is the most important.
Do you play any other instruments?
Well, I sing. I still perform as a singer. I can play keyboards a bit to get around. When you earn degrees in music, you have to do something called keyboard proficiency exams. So you have to know all the scales, all the chords. You have to be able to read, basic music. I can play the viola, which is, very similar to violin, but just one string lower and a little bigger. Most instruments that I pick up, I can figure out a little bit just because of, having musical brain. But those are the ones that I do the most.
Do you take lessons, or do you give lessons, or both?
Right now I'm not giving lessons. Of course, I took lessons from the time I was in 4th grade through my master's degree, lessons every single week. And in the summers, I did a lot of summer programs. I did teach at Pepperdine University for a few years. I really, really enjoyed that. I had a few students win concerto competitions, which is great. It's just that between my solo album and performing that way, and then as a studio musician, your calls always come in at the last moment. So you kind of have to have a little bit freer schedule. So I decided not to continue teaching there. But someday I see myself, in a university again. I really like that.
Well, when you're back on campus, please look us up. We'd love to have you part of our stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope, I'd love to come back and do a collaboration with the School of Music. Between the School of Music and then performing at Kinnick, like, those are my really big goals. I'd love to do the album live with the orchestra at the School of Music. And then I'd love to work with the marching band and do something at Kinnick, because a lot of my pieces have marching band on it too. So those are my goals. I'd love to do that.
Do you recommend music being introduced at in a person's life at an early age to help their development?
For sure. I mean, there's so many studies that have been done where if a student, especially like a violinist, there's a lot of studies that it forms more connections in your brain and you're able to focus on other things much better. So yeah, I mean, test scores go up for math and science and everything else if the school also has a good music program. So I think it's super important. I mean, I don't even know where I would be if my school didn't have that music program. So it's really important.
Have you had a favorite artist that you've worked with?
Yeah, I mean, I think Céline is my favorite, just because, she's so real and she's so genuine and she's super, super goofy. But at the same time, she's at the very highest level of her craft every single time. I would say that a lot of artists that you work with, they perform as well as they can, but there isn't this idea that I'm going to give it 100%. No matter what it is, they might not always have the best attitude about it, but with Céline, every single night she would perform, every single thing she had, she would give that to the audience. And I think that's like such a great thing to be, like a genuine person, kind, treats musicians well, and then also gives the best of themselves in their craft.
Very cool. Wow. Just a couple more here, maybe. Do you have a favorite venue you've played?
Ooh, there's a few. I love playing Hollywood Bowl just because it's like 18,000 people, which is, amazing to perform and live. But I'd have to say my very favorite thing to do is to perform live, but on television. I remember the very first time I did a solo on live TV, it was 2009. I remember because I was actually pregnant at the time. And I had a solo on American Idol. And so you knew that the studio audience, which, by the way, they make it look really huge on when you're watching on TV, you think there's thousands of people in the audience. It's like maybe a couple hundred, maybe. But there's millions around the world. And so for me, that's like the highest of the high, to be able to perform live where you get the positive feedback right away. But then you also know that all these people are hearing you for, all over the place. So I would say live Hollywood Bowl is really cool, or Disney Hall downtown in Los Angeles is really cool. But then on TV is really my favorite.
Do you have a venue you wish to play that you haven't yet? Your dream venue?
Yeah, I mean, I've never performed in Carnegie Hall, actually. So yeah, I would love to do that. I've just never, for some reason, like the student orchestra things that, sometimes a lot of do tours and they perform there. That never happened for me. So yeah, Carnegie Hall.
Maybe one or two more here. Your favorite performance at the University of Iowa while you were a student?
Yeah, I think that was my senior year. Yeah, in fact, I was sitting concertmaster for the full orchestra by that time. And we did a piece called Elgar's Nimrod Variations. And actually, it's really interesting. When I was working on my album, we incorporated that into one of my pieces. We combined How Do You Train Your Dragon with Nimrod Variations. And the coolest thing about it, it was really serendipitous how it happened, because my arranger and I kind of brought that, like he brought that idea, and I knew like we were meant to work with each other, because he didn't know anything about the story, that piece meant a lot to me, that it was like my last senior year piece with my conductor. But he knew it was going to be really special. So yeah, definitely that performance.
Wow, you have just had an incredible resume. Well, I think we'll wrap things up here because we're about at our time. Before we do, I want to put a quick plug in for our next chat from the old cap, which will be a week from today, next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and that will be featuring Dr. Brian Wolf, who's the orthopedic surgeon and team doctor for the Iowa football team. He'll be discussing on-field injuries, implementing concussion protocols. He's actually going to do it from the Hanson practice facility, their training room there, which according to many people is the best in the country. So we'll get a nice little tour from him. And it's going to be hosted by Mark Kaufman, who is the founder and executive chairman of Athletic Co., one of the largest physical therapy franchises in the nation. So we'll get to hear from those two gentlemen next week, and I will put the link up to that in the chat. Lisa, it has been an absolute honor to hear from you. I know a couple of chords on guitar, and I don't know how you can play that instrument with no frets and just that fast your fingers move. Absolute honor. I've been looking forward to this for several weeks since we met a while ago. So thank you very much. We wish you absolutely nothing but the best in moving forward. If you want to take us out with a song that I think we'll all know and recognize, that would be great. But again, thank you so much on Iowa, and go Hawks.
Yay, of course. Yeah, and thanks for having me. I mean, I asked you, Tony, like if you wanted to get ready to play with me. So, you had your chance. So this is Back in Black, what kind of started it all for us. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Thank you so much again. We'll see you all next week.